therefore all things are covered, yeah? I can't know anything for sure. If I'm being rigidly epistemological.
Okay. So what's your name?
Tony.
Tony, Suboor.
Suboor,
So,
hi.
yeah, you said something very interesting about it was very logical for us to think that the Earth was
Flat. It's intuitively, from an evolutionary psychological point of view, it makes sense for us to compute the Earth as flat. It's only when you start trying to consider a bigger picture, you slowly start to realise, well, if I'm going to account for the sun and the sky and all of this stuff, my intuition is wrong, and actually it's round, yeah? So there's a functional way of looking at it, which is instinctive, and then there's a logical bigger picture. And because I'm embracing a self-consistent universe, I slowly realise the Earth is round, and I manage to combine my intuition with the objective reality, Would you agree?
I would agree with part of what you're saying, but where I would disagree with is maybe we don't disagree. Maybe so. In terms of epistemology, I think there's some things we can be certain of, but we don't have empirical evidence for.
Go on. Example.
Okay. I think you're going to agree with me when we go a bit further. So you spoke about evolutionary psychology, right? So there's a distinction that philosophers make between adaptive reliability and truth reliability. So natural selection has allowed us to be adaptively reliable. That when we have, for example, if we have false beliefs, and those false beliefs we're less likely to survive on, so therefore true beliefs are going to be more likely to be selected, because true beliefs are more likely to be aiding your survival.
Sure.
But it's not necessarily the fact that, like you mentioned, if you believe that the Earth was flat, you could go around most of your life in.
You could function quite easily in a primitive environment.
Exactly. So natural selection has designed us to be adaptively reliable, have cognitive faculties which are adaptively reliable, but not necessarily truth reliable. Okay, there's a distinction between truth reliability and I'll tell you where I'm going.
No, I kind of get where you're coming from.
Sure, that's fine. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, we're just moving the table. So where I was going with this.
No. I don't know who's mic. Sorry, apologies.
Thank you. So I'd love in this chat.
We will have again.
No, it's fine. Thank you.
We will have this conversation again.
Yes, I want to chat as well.
Yeah?
And I really liked where I'm sorry, it's just I didn't expect that to go as well as it did. I'm afraid I had a slightly more negative view of this gentleman.
No, it's all right.
A less positive than that. That was really good.
Sure.
Yeah, because I've watched some of Mohammed Hajjim's channel and your channel, and I thought the way it went with Cosmic Skeptic wasn't as good as it could have been, let's put it that way. You know what I mean?
But bear in mind, Cosmic Skeptic has spoken ill of our prophet, so that's why hijab was a little bit firm with him.
I think in the world of debate you're allowed to speak those kind. You're allowed to speak your opinion openly. I don't think he was trying to be insulted. I think he was trying to just engage in a debate. You know what I mean? So, but good luck anyway.
Hopefully next week we're here.
Yeah, next week.
Tony, come along next week.
Sorry.
So what I wanted to, and I think we're going to get an agreement here, I don't think we're going to disagree, is so natural selection can help us survive, and it can basically allow the next sort of the genes to be selected which are like, for example, behaviors which are going to be conducive to your fitness, they're going to be fixed in the population. But truth itself, the value of truth itself, is not something we can empirically justify. That's more of, like you mentioned earlier, a gut feeling, an instinct.
What you're saying seems so important that I don't want to continue unless I've really grasped it. I don't feel I have. Maybe
No worries.
Are you drawing a difference between embracing ideas which are functional to survival and have utility, and embracing ideas which are ontologically true?
Yes.
Okay, that distinction.
Yeah. And the
Right.
distinction.
Okay, if that's where we're at, I would guess and hope that the trajectory of your utilitarian truth, of your utilitarian knowledge, is moving closer and closer to ontological truth. That's how you would evolve. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that is precisely what evolutionary psychologists actually assumed.
Great.
Right. However,
I thought I just made that.
yeah.
So that's good.
Right. Well, it's actually quite intuitive. However, the problem came when people like James Sage and Anthony O'Hare, these other philosophers, they pointed out you could perfectly well survive on false beliefs, and in fact, sometimes false beliefs have greater fitness value than true beliefs.
Yeah, that's
so,
fascinating.
Yeah. So although it looked like it was going parallel, it actually goes perpendicular in some aspects. Okay. So the reason I was saying this is because in terms of epistemology, I don't think we can justify truth from a rational perspective. I think that.
You're saying you think there's no such thing as truth?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm saying that you and me, Tony, right?
Yeah.
I sometimes get the name wrong. You and me, Tony, we both believe truth is intrinsically valuable. We both believe this, right?
That's such a deep assumption that I've got to. Yes, I do, but maybe I'm wrong.
Okay.
I do.
So now this is an interesting thing. So let's make a distinction between intrinsic value of truth and instrumental value of truth.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm sure you know, like for example, money and gold, and you get the difference. Right? Okay. So we both believe that instrumental value of truth is there in the world. We all believe that truth has instrumental value. Because if you see, for example, 3 lions go into a cave, and 2 of them walk out, and you do your maths right, you know that there's a lion in there. You're not going to walk in there, right? So truth has.
We could do that. Look, if you don't grasp the truth, you're going to fall flat on your face very quickly. Okay.
Exactly.
So the opposite proves your point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Lack of truth will fuck you up.
Will basically take you out the gene pool.
Yeah.
Take you out of the gene
Ergo,
pool.
truth as an asset, as a utility, which I thought was your point. It's an asset. It's definitely as a utility.
Yeah, it is. What I'm saying is we both agree it has utility.
Yeah.
The question is, do we believe it to be intrinsically valuable? Right?
Well, I believe. Well, you could then break that down. Does that utility has intrinsic value? Yes.
No, not the utility. Not the utility.
Well, if truth, if say it again.
Okay, so good. Utility having intrinsic value is a side point. I'm not making that point.
Yeah.
I'm making the point that the fact that me and you both have an intrinsic worth for truth, that we believe truth is intrinsically valuable, this is something which is innate. We recognize it, and we don't really need justification for it.
Yeah, and it may be a false assumption.
Well, I believe it's true.
So do I.
Yeah, but here's another.
We can show a sphere where truth, ontological truth, has utility. Therefore, at least in part, truth has a functional value.
You're right here, but I'm going to make a different point. The point I'm going to make is truth is so intrinsically valuable that we are willing to give up the utilitarian value of false beliefs to go with the true beliefs which are uncomfortable.
I think that's a really nice insight, and I would say that what
it's not my insight. It's
well known. I think that what
It
you're
was
saying
mine.
there-
It was mine.
Okay.
I thought that for a couple of months.
No, it's actually quite. Whoever's it was, it's quite beautiful because it speaks to faith. I think. To
Yeah.
me, that speaks to
Indeed.
faith. You're
So-
going. I'll let go of my short-term utilitarian interest because I have a faith that there is a bigger destination that I should try and embrace.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a very spiritual insight, and I concur with this. Yes.
Yeah. So the reason why I brought us to this junction is because of epistemology.
Okay.
Now, in terms of my epistemology, you seem to be following this Cartesian skepticism sort of view, right?
Is it? Okay.
Okay.
Take your word for it.
I think therefore I am, and that's like the main thing. Everything else is built upon.
Well, actually, I think it's I care, therefore I am, or I feel, therefore
Okay.
I am is even deeper.
Okay.
Or I think, as God put it, I am, therefore I am.
Okay.
If you want to go really mystical. But I think there's one key defining thing. There's one statement you can break it down to, an axiomic statement of self-existence, which is irrefutable.
Yeah, that's
and
what Descartes did.
thereafter, everything else. I don't know exactly how you phrase that statement.
Yeah.
I think it's I feel, therefore I am.
Yeah. So the first person to do this within Western philosophy was Descartes.
Yeah, sure.
So
No, that I know
meditations
that,
and So I disagree with that view. Right?
do?
Yeah. Even though Descartes was a theist, and he used this argument to actually build a case for theism, I still don't think that's right.
Okay, what's not right?
Okay, his Cartesian skepticism, I don't agree with, right? And the reason why I don't agree with it is because what he's basically doing is he's doubting everything and then going back to what he really knows, which is that fact that he exists.
Yeah.
And from there, he's building a case for everything.
Yeah.
Right?
He's trying to get back. My understanding of the context of that situation was the world being round, a lot of ideas and assumptions that human beings have carried for centuries were suddenly under attack. The species was going, what do we know for sure? Because like the flat earth had turned into the round earth. You just had the discovery of America and all of this, yeah? So, and in light of that uncertainty and that sense of topsy-turviness, they were looking for core axioms they could rely on. So Descartes went hunting for one, and he went, okay, you can stand rock solid on I think, therefore I am, everybody. You can relax. We have a certainty again. It's not all just in the eye of the beholder. So it was an important contribution.
It was a contribution, but I think, like with anything, he went to an extreme.
He may well have done. I'm just applauding the fact you need the underlying axioms to build any case,
Yeah,
and he was doing it.
well, you do. But for you to make a case about epistemology, if you start off with his view, I believe that his view just leads to a type of hard solipsism, where you don't really know anything. You're always doubtful about
No,
everything.
you don't. But now let's live in the real world a minute. I have to.
So what's the alternative? Yeah, so
You could end up with that. It's okay. You could end up with that. But I'm willing to embrace the fact that I'm a flawed creature with flawed perceptions.
No, that's fine.
But I have to make choices in the real world.
yes, exactly.
As best I can, even though I'm only guessing what the real world is.
Yeah.
And I learn through experience the best patterns of choices to make.
So
and
that's the pragmatic view.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
being pragmatic,
Yeah.
so I'm not being solipsist.
No, you're not. What I'm saying is, logically, that view leads to solipsism. However, what you're doing is...
No. I think it can lead to solipsism. It can lead to philosophical idealism, which I think is a mistake.
Okay,
I
so-
think the two are compatible. Reality ultimately is just in my mind.
Okay, fine.
But there is a real world out there with objective rules.
Yeah, sure. But I know where we're disagreeing now. If I add the caveat that everything has to be rationally justified, and then I hold on to the view that the only thing that I know is that I exist, when you add these two together, you're basically in a philosophical quagmire, which you can't leave.
I'm being very consistent.
No, not you. I'm saying the person who makes the claim, the additional claim, that a belief, for it to be believed, right, you have to justify it.
Yeah.
Now, I think that view is actually outdated. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You mean by justify it 100%, with 100% certainty? Then we agree. I don't think you can, with 100%
Yeah.
certainty, justify any argument.
Yeah.
They're
So-
all contingent.
Yeah, so Aristotle gave a very good argument, yeah? He said, look, all knowledge, if you ask someone, how do you know A? He says B. How do you know B? Because of C. So if you have an infinite regress of justification, you will never know anything. So what he has said is that there's some foundational beliefs
Yeah.
which are axiomatic, which are unjustifiable,
Yeah.
and those are used to build your worldview.
Yes, correct.
Now that's the foundationalist view. I believe that view makes more sense.
I'm a foundationalist.
Okay, if you're a foundationalist, then Descartes. Okay, you can
In the
sort.
way you described it, I'm totally in.
Okay,
100%.
okay. Now, because I don't want to get too distracted by the philosophy side of things, something else that you
Why
said.
the philosophy is the most interesting bit.
It is. But you did mention spirituality, so I want to jump to where I was trying to get to. From the Islamic perspective, you mentioned something which really got me thinking. You mentioned about something inside.
Yeah.
Now, in Islam, we call that the fitra. Fitra.
Okay.
Fitra means your innate disposition.
Yeah.
Your innate disposition. Now, we don't believe that you need to rationally justify God's existence, although it can be rationally justified. We don't believe you have to rationally justify morality, although morality can be rationally justified. So there is an element, which is the philosophical, rational side, but there's also a spiritual dimension, which is higher than the rationality.
I agree that spirituality transcends rationality.
I'll give you one example why, Tony, right?
Yeah.
The example is this. You and me, we both believe right and wrong exists. We believe this.
I think the odds, I hope they do, and I think the odds are fightable.
Okay.
I also believe that maybe not. it's possible I live in a universe where there are no moral imperatives and this is a kind of hell, as I think I said before. It's possible we just landed in a horrible place. But it's also possible we've landed in a place where actually there are moral imperatives and it's a bit better than that. Both things are on the table.
So from the Islamic perspective, deep down inside, we all know there is right and wrongs. Deep down.
I can accept that there might be. Can you accept the possibility there may not be?
Okay, so in terms of the ontological existence of right and wrong, I'm an absolutist. I believe that right and wrong does exist. Where I can be a skeptic is in terms of how do we know this particular right or this particular condition.
Got it. Okay.
But so ontologically, I do believe they exist. For example,
ontologically, I hope they exist, and I believe I'm fighting the corner that goes, there is a moral imperative. I want to fight it, but I want to do it on the understanding that I might be wrong, and we might all be in a hell of a shit. But I think it's important to realise, knowing that we might be in deep shit here, I think is important because it tells you what the stakes are. If you're 100% sure that it's all good, there's actually less of an imperative on you to really do hard work. But when you realise that the stakes are very, very high here, if there are no moral imperatives, we're in trouble.
Yeah. So,
and it's possible there are.
Okay, so the difference between us now is, so far we've agreed a lot, the difference between us now is, I believe with certainty in God, and I believe with certainty that morals exist and these things happen. You're saying it's a possibility, but you're also saying that there's a possibility this is not true. Now, I want to tell you the difference between us and why the difference is there.
Yeah.
I believe the way you're arriving at it is only using rationality.
I hope not.
Well, okay.
It doesn't feel that way
Okay.
to me. I think I'm quite emotional.
What I'm saying is, so far, you're using just your reason and your rationality, and even if something seems very reasonable, such as the fact that right and wrong exists, truth is valuable, you'll always have a 1% doubt. You say maybe it's not the case. You'll always keep that door open.
I think it's the best way of creating an argument which will defend morality.
Yeah.
I want to do the best job I can of defending the moral principle and hoping it's real.
Yeah.
And I think the best foundation to do that I can do is to be diligent and epistemological and axiomatic. That creates the strongest steel man argument I can. If I don't do it that way, I think I end up with straw man arguments, which I think you can get from, no offence, more fundamentalist religions, where they just go, it says it, so it's true.
Okay.
And that's hopelessly unpersuasive.
So, what you said there, the difference between us now is that you would keep that possibility that maybe it's not true. You'd
I
always
think
keep...
it makes me stronger
Okay.
in my defence of
Sure.
morality.
And I think the difference is that as a Muslim, I don't believe rationality is the be-all and the end-all.
Neither do I.
I believe that the certainty that I have is through spirituality, and rationality only helps you get to a certain level.
I agree.
Yeah.
I do agree with that. I mean, I'm very into the Kabbalah.
So what supersedes
Kabbalah's-
rationality?
I'm not...
I don't know. Don't prejudge which branch of the Kabbalah I might be into.
No. I'm saying from our perspective, Kabbalah we wouldn't say is spirituality, but spirituality is, for example, to cut to the chase, a spiritual experience would give certainty in a way that rational arguments cannot undermine it. That's the point I'm making.
I'm not sure I agree with that, but the
Because
reason I mentioned the Kabbalah was one of the things I like about it is, as you climb the ladder of understanding, originally it's metaphysical and rational, but it reaches a point where they go, now you've got to let go of all that and it becomes mystical. Yeah? Where you've got to use something higher still. The very highest level of the Kabbalah, you've got to let go of that framework, the rational framework. But what you mustn't do is contradict the rational framework. There's a very big difference. Just because there are things which are beyond rationality doesn't mean those things have the license to contradict rationality.
Okay, so that's a good point, but there is a small caveat, and this is where we're not going to disagree, right?
Yeah.
Someone can come to you and make a really good rational argument which will persuade you of X.
Yeah.
Somebody else can come and give you a really good rational argument which will persuade you of Y.
Yeah.
So you can fluctuate.
Yeah.
However, the certainty that you get from spirituality, it makes you understand that, look, now I know this thing to be true, so it doesn't matter if someone comes and tries to give me an argument against it. Eventually, I will come to the true
I
argument.
see that as a mistake. I think that degree of certainty is counterproductive I've said this before, don't take this wrong, to jihad. I think if jihad means struggle, and I think it does, I think there's more struggle if you're carrying some element of doubt. It's harder to struggle with the eternal conundrums and problems and moral dilemmas of spirituality. It's easy to do if you've got no doubt, frankly. It's like saying, I'm brave, but I can't feel fear.
Okay.
If you don't feel fear, you're not really brave. And if you don't have any doubt, you're not really struggling
Yeah.
at a fundamental level.
I think a better way of explaining it is from this perspective. We believe that through a spiritual experience, you can reach a level of certainty which cannot be undermined by someone trying to make you doubt something.
That may or may not be true.
Yeah.
I don't know where to go with it.
Oh,
then,
okay,
except to go, as long as
The struggle part's separate, isn't it?
well, I think there's more struggle in having a degree
Sorry,
of
I'm getting
doubt.
confused
Because I
with
remember
two
Muhammad Hajib saying recently, he went, when I was younger, one of the things I said was, just give me anything but doubt.
Okay,
And I thought actually maybe that wasn't so insightful because a bit of doubt, he said, the Prophet, I'll take anything but I don't want doubt.
Okay.
And I think a bit of doubt can be useful.
okay, so look, what it is no human being can say that they are doubtful about everything. We have to have certainty in something to doubt something else.
And I've already defined the thing I have certainty
Which
in,
is this.
which is something like,
Which-
I think,
yeah.
therefore I am.
So
I feel
so we
therefore I am.
both agree. We both agree you can have certainty in something.
Yeah.
The only difference is that your certainty is a set of things which is smaller than my range of certainties. That's all it is.
Yes. But I think if we inspect our certainties, you'll discover that the one I'm embracing is being more diligent.
Well,
but ultimately, surely, if you don't know whether you're dreaming now or not, then everything's up for grabs.
Okay, so okay. Here's the thing.
All of us have had
yeah.
a dream where we thought we were awake.
Yeah.
Therefore, we don't know 100% that we're not dreaming now. Therefore, you don't know that you're always dreaming. Therefore, you don't know that everything you think you've learned wasn't a dream. Therefore, essentially, you know nothing for certain except that something's happening. That's all
Okay,
you actually
so
know.
this view I flirted with after I left university, and I was really trying to get to grips with it. I rejected it eventually because it itself is incoherent, and I'll explain to you why it's incoherent. The reason why it's incoherent is because if you are to have this idea that, okay, I don't know whether I'm awake or I'm sleeping,
Yeah.
right? And I don't know the difference between the two.
No, I do know. I can place strong bets on the difference between the two. I just don't know 100%. The word "no" to me means 100%. Maybe you guys don't have that connotation. Maybe this is my mistake. When I've heard people say "no," I think they mean 100% certain,
Okay, but either way,
as opposed to guess
Yeah.
or prefer. No
Yeah.
means definite.
sure. The thing is, it doesn't make a difference because you're still in existence.
Yeah.
So whether you're dreaming or you're awake,
That's exactly my point.
yeah. So the existence itself, of itself. Now, can we have a situation in which existence, like we exist as awake beings or brains in vats or whatever it is? So it's kind of irrelevant whether we're going to illusions or not.
No, it's not, because the fact that I exist is 100% knowledge certainty. Now, the qualities of the existence I'm in, that's up for debate.
Right.
Those are the things we're debating now. We're going, there's some stuff going on here, there's some laws, there's some rules, or
Yeah.
maybe there aren't. Are there rules? Aren't there?
So-
how do the rules work? And all of that is up for debate, and I can never be epistemologically 100% sure about any of them.
But we can also be certain, like Descartes came to the certainty, well, he used a different argument,
Yeah.
that there is a creator who is the cause behind all of existence.
That's a massive jump. That's an enormous
No, okay,
jump.
wait. You know, in terms of existence,
Yeah.
ultimately, why do we believe we exist? What's the reason
It's
that we believe?
beyond reason. That's the whole point. It's the axiomic bedrock of self-defining certainty, which means I can get
Is it-
past the turtles all the way down thing, because you'll never be able to prove a thing because of
Foundationalism.
Hume's fallacy of induction and Gödel's incompleteness theorem. both show
Foundationalism.
Rationalism is always eating its own tail.
Foundationalism, right? Basically, the same view you said you
Yeah.
agreed with. The same applies for truth as it does for existence. The very fact that me and you, Tony, are having this long discussion is because you value truth and I value
Yeah,
truth.
I value truth.
Right. And all of our lives, we live our life in a way that we value truth intrinsically, and we also value right and wrong intrinsically.
Yeah.
And these things, therefore, do not need rational justification necessarily.
Not necessarily, but it's highly advantageous if you can give some rational. Because we agree, you talked about utility. It's very advantageous if we can define these terms better so that, if nothing else, we can collectively aggregate as societies around them. If we can collectively agree on moral codes, which also makes sense, and they stress test rationally, they stress test intuitively, and so on, we can create better worlds for ourselves and everybody
No, but we
else.
both agree, even if they had no utility, we should still value it.
We should still. But
Yeah.
as it happens, their utility is, I would have thought, fairly self-evident.
No. However, truth can sometimes be horrible.
Yeah,
Right?
unfortunately, yes.
So, for example, me knowing my own, like I can tell my children, you know what, you're never going to die. It's a myth.
Yeah.
People don't die.
Yeah.
In a way, they'll live their happy life, and one day they'll die, and they won't know that they died. So
Yeah.
they can live their life in
Yes,
this
you
sort of
could
false
leave
belief.
them in ignorance.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
maybe you should.
But-
There's an argument to say you should.
But that's what I'm saying, that we value truth to the point that we are willing to take on beliefs which we know are uncomfortable because we value truth over comfort.
Yeah, and I think there's some nobility.
Yeah, and that's because not only our existence, not only truth, not only morality, all of these things are things that we are not rationally able to justify from first principles. We accept them axiomatically, and this is part of the human fitrah, what I was speaking about
I
earlier.
hope you're right, and I believe you may well be. I think we have an instinct for religion. Okay? I think you're saying something like that.
I
think
am
okay,
saying that.
I'm totally on board with the idea that human beings have an instinct for religion. In different cultures, those religions manifest in different ways, but they have a common underlying thread, and I embrace it. It's a good thing. All I'm saying is, epistemologically, I don't know.
Okay,
But
no, that's
I'm
fine.
giving it a 95%.
Okay,
What do
so,
you want,
so,
okay?
so
We're on
Tony,
the same team.
so to end, what I'll say is our only disagreement here is
Yeah.
I believe that if you adopt spirituality, you will come to that 100%.
Okay, and I believe that spirituality is about not embracing 100% because it would be inappropriate.
Okay, so now what we get to is I don't believe that's spirituality.
I think 100% is too easy.
Okay.
Okay, I think I want a real jihad here, okay? Because I think the stakes are so high, we need a real jihad, and we've got to be very diligent.
You see, the Prophet Abraham.
Sorry, I don't mean to use jihad in an offensive
No,
way. I just think that
it's a
we
concept.
we understand.
Concept of struggle, yeah.
The thing is, look, jihad, even the way that you're using it currently, is actually the correct
It's the
context.
correct way.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's a struggle. So, like, for example,
definition.
the Prophet, peace be upon him, said the greatest jihad is the word of truth against a tyrant. Yeah? So it's the word of truth. It's not fighting. It's basically you speaking the truth. So where I think we should end this conversation, because it's gone really well, right? Is that I believe if you try the spiritual, like you tried Kabbalah, right? Or you said you.
I'm interested in synthesizing all of the religions with humanism into something which I think doesn't. I don't think
one.
there's necessarily a big argument to be had here. I think the small print is a problem. I think there's a lot. My view of religion has always been it's like panning for gold, okay?
Okay.
You go to a religion, you pan for gold, and you'll always find quite a lot of dirt in there, but what's important is the gold. Now, there'll always be some people going, look at this dirt, and I'm going, screw that, look at the gold in here. Now, Islam's clearly got a lot of gold in it, yeah? So the 5 pillars to me are really strong. All of the ideas and principles are there, and I can see gold in other religions as well. So I just want to get all the gold in the same camp and realise you've got far more in common than you think.
Okay, so
But the literalism is a problem, and the dogma is a problem.
so I want to. I don't have it with me now, but are you coming to the park next week?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to get a book, and it's a book by, and it's better if without the cameras we can have a discussion. So it's a book about Islamic spirituality.
Yeah.
I'm just going to gift it to you. You have a read, and then you go on your own journey. The fact is, look, when I heard you speaking earlier to Ali Dawah, I actually thought, do you know what? A lot of what you're saying is actually making sense.
Thank you.
The only disagreements are when it comes to spirituality and certainty. And I think we can have a conversation about it.
Good. I hope we can. I think this is good. I didn't expect that it would go so well with him either, because I thought it was going to be more kind of fundamentalist and stuff. But that was good. But
It
I
also
tend
fun-
to go for the points of conflict. For me, the points of conflict